Today, I've got good news for those of you who struggle with managing your digital images. Where are they at? Why do I have 14 copies of them? Why can't I find them? Great news on that front. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about the brand new release of Nikon Z8 Firmware 3.0. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. So in this video, I'm going to spend a fair amount of time and bring Rick LePage in to talk a little bit too about managing your digital library, about knowing where all of your images are, easily accessing them, adding metadata to make that process simple. And we're going to introduce a course that he and I have been working on for a long time to help with that. I know a lot of you have been anxiously asking me, when is the organizing course going to be out? It's out. It's ready to go. So exciting news on that front. But before I jump in and do all things organizing, I want to talk just really briefly about Nikon's big announcement of Firmware 3.0 for the Z8. It's a big deal. It's a major firmware advancement, and I will be getting a Z8 from my good friend Charlie Johnson to play with this week and test all the new features out, and I'll do a setup video and a review video of that firmware. My quick notes are, the most exciting thing to me in that firmware is manual focus subject detection. That is an awesome thing I've been enjoying in the newer Nikon Z cameras. I'm not as excited about pixel shift shooting. If you're curious why, you can check this video out where I talk about how super resolution can actually get you a better result with a single sharp, well-captured exposed frame. So check that out. I'm also not as excited about the view maximum aperture as a lot of people would expect me to be. A lot of people think, well, isn't that solve your depth of field preview problem that you've had with Nikon's mirrorless cameras? And sadly, it's the opposite. It actually is just pressing a button to see maximum aperture so that you can precisely focus your subject and then stop down to get more depth of field. What I'd really like to see is the ability to see narrower apertures than f5.6 and zoom in to check focus foreground to background. That's something you just can't do with a Nikon Z camera. It's unique to Nikon's, and I wish they'd fix that. This is the opposite that they're doing. It's cool, but it's not what I'm really excited about. All right, so let's talk organizing. One of the things that Rick and I see the most when we're running workshops, and we go out with hundreds of photographers to beautiful places, and we work on, working with your equipment and capturing images and reviewing images and looking through each other's eyes, and we notice that a lot of people struggle with organizing their images in a way that they can easily access and find them. And that's something that Rick and I have used Lightroom for decades, a bunch of decades between us. And people have been clamoring for us to put something out there to help them with that. We've helped a lot of individuals. So we sat down and we started months ago building a course on organizing. And Rick has put together an amazing ebook. And both of us have worked together on the videos in the ebook. They go hand in hand. They dovetail. It is an absolute, we're really, really proud of it. I think it's going to help a lot of people. And so, I'm going to talk with Rick a little bit afterwards, but I'm going to show you the very first video. It's kind of the course introduction. It goes over what this course is all about. There's a link to buy the course in this video's description or to check it out. You can always hit me up about more questions about it, but you can also click this link right here in the video. And so without further ado, I'll show you the introduction video. So, Rick, what is this course all about?
Well, in our workshops, one of the things that keeps coming up over and over again is, how do you organize your photos?
Yeah, where do I find my photos? How do I get to the photos that matter to me? How do I even figure out which of all these images to edit? How do I find them once I have edited them? And how do I avoid having 16 copies of the same image spread across multiple folders all over the universe? And I think, because we're out with photographers in these beautiful places teaching workshops in different groups multiple times a year, we really see what people struggle with. And I think organizing is fundamental.
Yes, organizing is fundamental. We've been talking about this in workshops for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we hope to do with this course is to sort of demystify that whole process. Right. It seems like it can be a struggle, but I think, with some very simple practices to put into place, you can get set up so that you know where your images are. Mm-hmm. You know how to get to them.
Within like 30 seconds, you
Yes.
can find any image that you're looking for in your library.
Yep.
And have them backed up so that you can sleep safely at night without paying to have some cloud-based.
Right.
Well, I mean, you pay a little bit for offsite service, potentially a cloud-based
Right.
offsite service, but not for the kind of cloud service that's doing all the organizing for you in the background and holding on to all your images for you.
And for us, this is Lightroom Classic.
Indeed.
I mean, when I talk to people and they're like, well, why are you still using Lightroom Classic? And I go, there are lots of raw editors out there that do a very good job. Okay, and Adobe I still feel is the best. But I have yet to find anything out there that works as well as the library module does.
In Lightroom Classic.
Yes.
No, indeed. You know, for years and years, I used Photoshop and Bridge. And you had to do all your own file management and organizing. You kept your folder structure. You knew where everything was in your folders, and you knew where to go hunting for things. And then Lightroom came along, and it gave us the ability to do collections and virtual copies of raw edits that we were doing, and really get it down to where you just have one raw file, maybe one master editing file if you've gone in and changed it a bit, and in a location that's searchable with all kinds of easy to use search criteria within the library module to find what you're after without remembering what folder it's in from 1999 or 2006 or, you know, it makes it quite simple. So we're going to talk about ways to use metadata to indicate which images are the best, which images matter, categorize different types of images, light keywording.
Yeah. We're going to talk about our organizational structure, how we name files and why we believe it's important to name your files very specific things.
And how we set it up to have an automated backup system that really makes it easy to have a series of images here, you know, in my studio, on my laptop, a backup in my studio, and one in the cloud that's just all automated and simple.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to do.
I guess we should get started.
Well, hey, Rick.
Hey, Hudson. How you doing?
Organizing.
Organizing. Yes, finally. My
We're
God,
done.
I am. This has been my long national nightmare.
Not really.
Oh well, it's just we've been talking about it for so long, and I mean I've actually stopped talking about it when people would ask, just because we were working on it, and the what do they say, the last 50 yards, the last mile is always the hardest.
It's like football. That last 2 yards is like everything.
Yeah, yeah. I remember going home at night, and Susan, she goes, "How you do today?" And I said, "Well, I got half of a chapter written today."
Okay, so I have to just mention I haven't talked to you since getting back from New York and reviewing the final ebook format. The ebook that accompanies the video course is just amazing, and I think
thanks.
it's such an amazing reference for people. You watch the videos, and then you've got the ebook to go back to, and your linked table of contents, and the comprehensiveness of it, and all the screenshots and table. It's wonderful. It was a phenomenal job, and I know people are going to love it.
I'm very proud of what we did. I think the videos are, it's a good 4-hour course when you talk about the main videos and the bonus videos. But I feel like, when we're out there in workshops, over the last few years, we've been dealing with people, and they're, what do I do? I can't find my photos. Where, I need help with Lightroom.
Yeah.
And we've been doing that, and we've been talking about doing a course that sort of tries to demystify, this whole organizational aspect of Lightroom Classic. And I feel like we did a good job.
And I know there's going to be people who are saying, well, why is it Classic instead of the straight up Lightroom or Lightroom CC? And to me, I just think the power of the organizational component of Lightroom Classic and the fact that the Lightroom Cloud version, at least at this point, feels very disjointed between local files and what they store in the cloud. And
Right.
for photographers like us who have large libraries, decades long, big high megapixel count images, it becomes so onerous to pay for that storage. Each terabyte starts costing you more and more per month. And I know that's the business model. And,
Right.
It does create, just like Apple Photos or Google Photos, the ability to let that sort of AI search, find the black dog, whatever. But you can do that with your own library, keep track of it yourself. And I think that both you and I have decades of experience using Lightroom since it first launched. And we've come to our own organizational system separately, but they're very similar, And I think that just looking at how we do it and how we explain, the ways that you can put together an organizational system where in seconds you can find whatever image you're looking for without knowing what folder it's in. It is a wonderful thing to be able to manage yourself and keep control over your own files without putting those master files in some big tech giant's vault and paying them for the service.
Yeah, and that's, to me, it's the fact that, these are my photos. I own them.
Yeah.
And I have my backups in the cloud.
100%.
We use Backblade, right? And that's for catastrophic.
And we talk about how to do that in this course too. We lay it out. Yes, we do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to me that I know where my photos are and where my photos backups are. And the backups of the backups, because this is what I do. Exactly. I'm a photographer, and the things that we see out there are, there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety over the import window in Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, and that's, I think, the place where everybody gets sideways when they start. And we talk about how to think about that import window, to go from left to right, top to bottom, and think about everything. And, we talk about the fact that you and we double check our work every time.
Every time.
Yeah. And it is second nature to us now, right? But you still need to pay attention to it, understand what's happening and where things are going.
I think people will be surprised that the importing video is one of the longer videos in the course, but it really is. That's the section where you create the structure and you make it so that it's very simple, just with a few search terms and clicks to get right to whatever you're looking for without navigating folders or collections even. There's a lot of power, and I'm very, very proud of this course. I think it's going to help a lot of people. Like you said, when we're out on workshops, we run into people who, that's the struggle. We work with people, expanding their creative vision, looking through everybody's eyes on the workshop, working with the gear, getting your cameras down, getting your support equipment down, but then coming back and doing the image reviews and editing when we're in the in-between shooting sessions. You just find that there are so many people who have no idea where they've put their photos from last week or yesterday, let alone last year. And it's this constant source of frustration and anxiety. And, Rick and I had said to each other, we need to create a course on how to do this.
Yeah. And one of the things that's interesting about that is that, and we talk about this as well, is, we're out there on the road. We've got a completely different computer than the ones we're working on in our studios.
Yep.
And yet we're running our Lightroom catalogs. Right? We're importing photos.
Yep.
And that's one of the things where people get confused about. And I think, you talk about that in your video, but where you walk people through, what is it like when I'm getting ready to go on a workshop tour?
Yep.
What happens when I get back? How do I get my photos back to where they're supposed to be?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, I'm super proud of it. I think people are going to enjoy it. You have questions about it, you can always hit us up. Quickly, before we go, we should mention we've got an upcoming office hours after our Mount Rainier workshop. We're going to be talking about portrait photography.
On the 29th of July.
29th of July, 10 a.m. Pacific. That's a big free meeting where you can all get together with us and chat on Zoom or YouTube Live, and we'll take your questions and we'll talk about photographing people, both environmental portraits where it's a little wider angle and you're telling something about your subject, and headshots and whatever else you're interested in. We're happy to discuss it. And also just, a change that's happened with me over the years where I'm much more focused on natural light versus using strobes.
Yeah.
I think that the power to simply select a subject in Photoshop and change the exposure of your foreground background so quickly and easily negates a lot of the need that we had in the
Yeah.
past for flashlighting something and underexposing the background. You can do that so easily in post now, and the cameras have such amazing dynamic range. So we'll talk about all of that and more.
Yeah. So if you want to sign up for it and ask a question, you can go to hudsonhenry.com/office hours. You can fill out the form, tell us whether you'd like to get a link for the Zoom call or the YouTube,
100%.
and you can ask a question about portraiture.
Yep. You can click the link that's shown up here on the video too. All right, Rick. Well, I'm super excited to hear feedback from people watching this course. I think they're going to love it, and I appreciate all the hard work. It has really paid off, and it's something I'm really proud of. So, kudos. Good job.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was fun.
All right. Well, thanks.
All right, man. And hey, everybody, I hope you're out there staying safe, staying creative, and we'll see you next week.